Hi everyone, it's Talia from Zart Art, and today we're going to be creating wooden jewellery pieces inspired by Romero Britto. Britto is a Brazilian artist who focuses on aspects of pop art, cubism and graffiti art in his own work. A lot of his work is really bright, he uses bold shapes, patterns and colours in his work. Britto likes to portray hope, dreams and happiness in many of his works. So today we're going to be focusing on the shapes, colours and patterns that he uses in his own work to create a jewellery piece. So today we're going to be creating a wooden jewellery piece. An example here is a necklace that I've created, and we'll be creating earrings to go with our necklace using some of these wooden jewellery pieces. So as you can see, we've got a variety of different shapes that we can use for our wooden jewellery piece. So I'm going to have a think about the shape that I want my earrings to be, and because we are going to be creating two earrings, we want to make sure that they are symmetrical, so both the same on each side in terms of the shape, whereas I'm going to try and make the colours a little bit different on each side. So to begin, I'm going to set out some of the shapes that I want to use for my earrings and make sure that I'm creating two sets of the same earring. Okay, so now I've chosen the shape for my earring, and you can have a little bit of a play with the kinds of shapes you want to put together, but from here I'm happy with what I've got. So now the next step is to use our Posca markers. So Posca markers are acrylic paint in a marker, so they're very easy to control and easy to create fine details. If you wanted to use other materials for a project like this, you can use acrylic paints, but you might want to use a really fine brush to get some detail into it. Or if you're not worried about the pattern and you want to focus on colour, you could also use oil pastels or other markers to add colour to your wooden pieces. But for me, I want to create some of those fine details like Britto would have used in his work. So I'm using a combination of bullet Posca markers as well as fine Posca markers to create that detail. So the first step for me is to have a little bit of a think about Britto's work. So a lot of his work uses very bright colour, and it also cuts down the image into sections or segments, very similar to cubism. So what I'm going to do is break down my wooden jewellery piece shapes and just cut it down into different sections using different colours. So that's going to be my base colour, and then we'll work over the top of that once I've completed colouring in all my pieces. Now if you're worried about the surface you're working on and you don't want to get any marker on it, you can place your wooden pieces on a piece of paper. Okay, so now I've got the base colours of my shapes down, and if you're finding a colour's a little bit light or you don't like where a colour's sitting, you can go over it with the Posca marker and change the colour. It's quite easy. You might want to also let it dry a little bit before you go on to the next step, but it doesn't take too long for a Posca to dry, just about a minute or two. But our next step will be to use our ultra fine Posca marker, and if you look at Britto's work, you'll see that there's a bold black outline, very similar to a lot of pop art artworks. So we're going to be recreating that black outline on our jewellery pieces. So wherever there's a change in colour, I'm going to outline with my black, and also around each of my shapes will have a black outline using my ultra fine marker. Okay, so now I've got my base color, I've got my black outline. Now my next step is to recreate some of the patterns that Britto uses. So I'm going to use bold lines. I'm also going to add some dots and some little symbols in there as well. So I'm going to try and use colors that will stand out on top of the colors that I've already worked with. So I'm going to use a combination of my bullet markers as well as my ultra fine markers. So depending on what you're working with, just have a think about what kind of marker you want to use to create some of those really fine details. But I find that ultra fine Poscas work really well to create that fine line and fine dot on something that's as small as these wooden shapes. Now I've added my patterns to my jewellery pieces. The next step is to add our jump rings. So I've got our little jump rings here, which will be used to connect every wooden shape to each other. So you can figure out how many pieces you'll need. So ones that have 2 holes conjoining, we'll add them there. And we'll be turning these into earrings. So I've got my earring posts and studs here, which I'll thread through the top hole. But if you wanted to create other earrings, there's also shepherd's hooks that you can use. And to use something like a shepherd's hook, you can just put another jump ring in the top, but we'll be using the posts for this one. So using some small jewellery pliers, all you need to do is grab one of these jump rings, and these ones are quite pliable, so I can use my fingers quite easily to bend those. And thread that through the top. And you want to make sure that all your jewellery pieces are facing the right way. You can colour in both sides if you want to, but otherwise just make sure that they are looped through facing the same way so that your colours are all in the same spot, and just easily bending that jump ring back, and then you can move on to the next section. So I've got my jump rings threaded through my wooden shapes, and now our last step is to add our earring stud and post just to the top of your earring. You can thread that through, and if you wanted to, you could glue another shape on top of that if you wanted to hide the stud, but I think it looks all right the way it is. So I'm going to leave it just open with that metal on top. What you can also do is, if you wanted to seal your work, then you can also use a layer of Mod Podge over the top to seal your Posca. And if your jump ring comes loose, thread that back through and make sure that it is pulled in nice and tight. So you might find that some of your jump rings can come loose, especially if you are having a bit of a fiddle with the shape. So you can easily just use your pliers to get those back into the right area. Okay, so we've got our Britto inspired earrings here. So you can see there's a symmetry in the shapes that we've used in our wooden pieces, but there's also asymmetry and the colors that we've used with the pattern, but they really make a nice piece together because we have used that Britto style with the bold colors, shapes and lines, and they work quite nicely as a set. So there's lots of different options that you can take with a project like this. You could make bracelets, you can make different shapes of necklaces and earrings, but it's a really fun activity if you want to explore jewelry making as a different kind of art form, all the way from your junior year levels in primary school to your senior year levels in primary school. It's a great way to explore the artist style and going about a different way of making art in the form of jewelry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.